let's go ahead and get up into it, and then we'll see how it goes.
Into the specifics.
Why aren't you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
It's the group chat message heard around the world as it's still trying to be figured out how a journalist was added to a secret message chain with high-level officials in the U.S. government about an upcoming military attack. The legal and
Yeah, you know what's really funny is the same journalist that got added to this thing, this group chat on this secure server, was the same guy that did the Russia hoax. That guy and many others. And guess what? The Atlanta or well, I can't say it, but that same newspaper, the owner of that newspaper is friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. You know, like Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend. Come on, guys. Hey, Democrats, let's put two and two together.
national security questions mount. Was this legal? Did someone commit perjury? Will charges follow? What are the repercussions? We separate the politics and really focus on the law and regulations surrounding this whole signal scandal. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
Oh, yeah.
All right, before we get into this, something exciting I got to tell you about happened here at Law and Crime. We officially launched our brand new piece entitled Intersection of Law. You know the thing about that title? Stephen Miller.
The average American has a household debt of $104,215.
Really?
White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Special Envoy to the Middle East and Russia Steve Witkoff, and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. And here's the thing. On this chat, there was a discussion apparently about an upcoming military strike against the Houthis, this Iran-backed group in Yemen that has attacked Israel. Ooh. And reportedly, 2 hours after this discussion, the U.S. launched a series of air offenses against the Houthis. In fact,
I got one question. Why did that same Democrat journalist go right to the news? Why did he go right to the news media? That's what he did. He went right straight to the news media and told them. Why didn't you just say, hey guys, on this server, hey, I'm on here. I'm not supposed to be. But he didn't. It's all coming out.
On March 15th, it was confirmed that a top Houthi commander was in fact killed. And you can see why this is an issue, right? Having a journalist, a civilian, privy to these concentrated private conversations about an upcoming military strike involving U.S. personnel. Think about if that information got out, right, to the wrong people or the wrong person was added to this chat. Potentially, U.S. lives could have been at risk. No? Now, how did Goldberg get invited to this chat? Why wasn't he noticed on?
Right there, guys. That's the guy. He is a crook. And it just so happened to be that guy right there that got added to that freaking list. They already knew that guy was a crook. They already knew that. That's why they added them, because they knew damn well he was going to go right to the newspaper. Hook, line, and sinker.
On there? Why were they even on Signal to begin with? These are great questions. Now, it seems, based on the reporting, that Goldberg was inadvertently added to this group chat by Mr. Waltz. More to come on that. By the way, as we're doing these multiple sidebars a day, I am so busy. I am always running around, but I will tell you what, our amazing sponsor Upside makes at least buying my daily essentials as I go about my day an actual treat. I say that because Upside is a free app that gets you offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. It doesn't store or collect sensitive information. It's information. In fact, in 2021, according to ABC, an internal report concluded that the use of Signal by a former Pentagon official violated the department's policies because this is not an authorized messaging service. However, CIA Director John Ratcliffe defended the use of Signal when testifying this week in front of the Senate Committee on Intelligence after news.
Okay, guys, what's a lot of things that's going on with this Signal app? The Democrats use it. The deep state use it. The deep state Republicans, the deep state Democrats, they all use it. You see what's going on here? The deep state used it, okay? You got the Democrats, now they're fighting against it. They want to get rid of it. But that's perfect. The Republicans are fighting for it because They're secretively wanting to get rid of it. So what they're doing is they're going to agree eventually. They're going to be like, okay, let's just get rid of it. And guess what? Then the deep state has no comms whatsoever. They have no idea what's going on. That's why Donald J. Trump is getting rid of all these secret security clearances from all these higher ups, so they can't get any more secret messages and stuff. And so they don't know what's going on. And so what's happening is they're left in the dark. And more this is happening. So, oh man, it's just making it so the deep state it's making it a lot harder for them. And I love it. This is amazing.
News of this whole issue.
The story thickens.
Issue came out.
The use of signal message in end-to-end encryption applications is permissible and was, in this case, used permissibly, at least to my understanding, and in a lawful manner.
Actually, I want to talk about this hearing for a moment. You see, when the piece from Jeffrey Goldberg came out, when it was published, there was arguably a downplaying of what this conversation was about. Hegseth told reporters, nobody's texting war plans. President Trump told reporters on Tuesday that there was, quote, no classified information as I understand it. And he would go on to criticize Goldberg, called him a total sleazebag, how The Atlantic is a failed magazine. So during the hearing on Tuesday, both Ratcliffe and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard faced a lot of questioning about this group chat, and they seemed to suggest that there was no classified information discussed as far as they knew, and couldn't really recall key details of what was on there.
Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a skiff?
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security.
IRS e-file is now open. Snap your W-2 and file your taxes 100% free. Plus, get
It was such a setup.
Security.
Was there any mention, Ms. Gabbard, of a weapon or weapons system?
I don't recall specific weapons systems being named.
I'm not talking about specific, any weapon or weapon system.
I don't recall specific names of systems or weapons being used.
Mr. Ratcliffe, same question.
I don't recall.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard.
I don't recall specific timing.
Was there any
I
mention?
won't get into the details.
You know, it's you know what sounds familiar? It sort of sounds the same as the other, you know, the other hearings that they had Democrats up there saying the exact same thing, and then the Republicans were questioning them. It's the exact same thing. Just the roles are switched. To me, the movie is just getting good.
Detail of the conversation, but obviously there was a significant amount of planning and internal discussions that had occurred prior to and outside of this signal chat.
Any mention of any military unit whatsoever? Mr. Ratcliffe.
Not that I recall.
But here's the issue with all that. After Goldberg was essentially getting trashed by the Trump administration, he made the rounds on the media. In fact, he went on CNN and said, that's a lie. He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. I didn't publish this, and I continue not to publish it because it felt like it was too confidential, too technical, and I worry, honestly, that sharing that kind of information in public could endanger American military personnel. But no, they were plans for the attack. And lo and behold, what happens Wednesday morning? The Atlantic published what appears to be actual excerpts from that group chat, like this apparent message from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Team update. Time now, 11:44 Eastern. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission launch. 12.
Is that a crime? Did they set him up with a fake? That's the question. Because I think they did. I think they set him up. And why did he go right to the newspaper? Is that a crime? They're actually posting what he sensitive material. The failing Atlantic is what Trump calls it.
12:15 Eastern. F-18s launch, first strike package. 13:45, trigger-based F-18's first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on. Also, strike drones launch MQ-9s. 14:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. More to follow per timeline. We are currently clean on OPSEC. Or how about this from Mr. Waltz? Typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy, we had positive idea of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and it's now collapsed. So it certainly made it interesting when Gabbard and Ratcliffe said that, and then
They're like, oh, we got him. We got Trump. We got him. Yay! That's what everybody's like saying. Yes, we got him. We got him. Guess what? It's going to fall apart. Just like everything else. The Russia hoax and many others. They're all falling apart. And guess what? This is going to fall apart too. And you know the end story is going to be? That Signal app is going to go away. And guess what? The Democrats and the deep state can no longer use it. They can't hide. It's just getting rid of it. That's amazing to me.
Then this comes out, and then they were back on Capitol Hill on Wednesday after the publication of these excerpts, and again after their testimony the day before. So this time they testified in front of the House Intelligence Committee.
My answer yesterday was based on my recollection, or the lack thereof, on the details that were posted there. I was not, and what was shared today reflects the fact that I was not directly involved with that part of the Signal chat, and replied at the end, reflecting the effects, the very brief effects that the National Security Advisor had shared.
So it's your testimony that less than 2 weeks ago, you were on a Signal chat that had all of this information about F-18s and MQ-9 Reapers and targets on strike, and you in that 2-week period simply forgot that that was there. That's your testimony?
My testimony is I did not recall the exact details of what was included there.
And Gabbard also emphasized that there are no sources, methods, locations, or war plans that were shared, and how the material in this chat was actually shared with regional allies, saying the decision to conduct this operation had been made long before that conversation took place. So the question becomes, was it confidential? Was her testimony and Ratcliffe's completely 100% honest the day before? And that raises another important legal question, aside from the potential issue of false testimony under oath, was this a violation of the Espionage Act regarding the handling or the mishandling of confidential information? Okay, so for all of that, now I want to bring on global affairs journalist Kevin Barron, who has worked in foreign policy and national security. He's the founder and president of Elevation Global Strategies. Thanks so much for coming here on Sidebar. Appreciate it.
Before that, we just got some breaking news here. Tim Waltz claims tampering and potential fraud occurred in the 2024 election. I'm telling you, 2020 is not over yet, boys and girls. Tim Waltz claims tampering and potential fraud occurred in the 2024 election. Yes, I think Donald Trump had way too many votes. I do. Wait a minute. Did I say that? Actually, I want an investigation. I want an investigation because I think there was tampering in the 2024 election. And then once they find out that the 2024 election, Donald Trump had actually more votes in 2024 election than they said, and then they go back to the 2020 election, and then they find out that he actually won it then, everything's null and void, boys and girls. And then we are, man, I love it when conspiracy theorists are proven right. Here we go.
My pleasure.
So let me ask you straight up, was this classified information? And if so, what makes it classified?
I mean, if this isn't classified information, I'm not sure what is. I try to answer this question more diplomatically and legally, saying, that's not for me to determine. But there's so much commentary out there. And in all of my experience covering the Pentagon, and I was in the Pentagon press corps for about 15 years, certainly this is classified. What makes it classified is, and especially these are operational plans.
First of all, this gentleman has nothing to do. He's not in the military. Well, he was, I think he was. But he is not in the government as we speak.
Well, I basically bought this roof over the internet, which wasn't something I'd ever done before, but it worked out real well.
Anything that could put...
Now, I do believe it should be. But was that the exact thing that happened? That's what I want to know. If what they said was the exact same thing that happened, then I could consider that probably it shouldn't have been out there. It should be classified. I absolutely agree. What do you guys think? Chat down below it. What do you guys think? But if that is exactly what happened, then maybe it should be top security. I don't know. I'm curious.
But the people doing this at risk. That's how simple it is. So revealing over an unclassed network, which is what Signal is, and no matter how secure you may think it is an unclassed network. It is not the SIPRNet. So revealing...
I still think that this whole story is designed to get rid of this app right here so the deep state cannot use it against us.
Things like timings, just start with that. 100% is something that you would expect to be classified, and even I've seen now Senator Wicker saying he thinks this all should have been classified.
And if you know, can someone just say, oh, this is classified, this is declassified, this is classified, is there a protocol put in place by whether or not we can categorize certain information as classified, or is it the very nature in which these conversations were happening, even though Signal is, we'll talk about it, not the most secure of platforms, and obviously you could see why, is it the very nature of the conversations themselves and who's having these conversations and where they're being conducted that's what makes it classified? The best you can answer that.
There's no coincidence that gentleman out of all the gentlemen out there, the guys out there, got it. There's no coincidence. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, the answer is this is what I would hope, lawyers will parse out, and we'll do it in front of congressional hearings and cameras for the world to see. I think both the things you said are true. There are people who decide this is a classified document and stamp it in the old-fashioned way. But then there are just behaviors and discussions that inherently are presumed or supposed to be classified. And I've heard even, for example, Senator Slotkin from Michigan saying discussing the possibility of a strike. It's not even the strike details. The discussions about the strike are something that would be classified. Now, we've heard for a long time for people saying the president can instantly declassify something. The president has that authority. The secretary has some authorities too. I don't know the exact details, and I'm not going to guess. But it goes to the point of the feedback you're hearing, or the pushback you're hearing from the White House and from Hegseth and others, and Gabbard all saying these are not classified war plans. And they're banking on the fact that they said they're not classified to count retroactively that those information. The informational details that have been revealed were not. That all needs to be parsed out.
And you got to look at the big picture. What is the purpose here? In a normal setting, you got to look at it this way. I look at things a lot differently now that I know that everything pretty much that I've been taught was a lie. And so I sort of just have to sit back and just think, why would they be telling us this? I just think that they're trying to get rid of this backdoor channel to have conversations behind people's backs. It's an app that people can get on.
Let me ask about that. When you hear the testimony from 2 days, do you think it's problematic? And what do I mean by that? There are people who are saying, oh, this is perjury. There are others who are saying, not so fast. I mean, was it couched enough to suggest I'm only revealing what I know right now and what my understanding was? But here's the problem. I played this before. What was said on one day, the release of excerpts of the transcript, and then what was said the other day. When you hear Tulsi Gabbard say no sources, methods, locations, or war plans were shared, and that this was material in this chat was actually shared with regional allies, saying the decision to conduct this operation had been made long before that conversation took place. What do you make of those explanations? What do you make of what was said on Capitol Hill?
Well, two parts of that also. I think one, this is why you heard those officials using the good old phrase, I don't recall. That's your get out of jail free card for anything, right? That if you don't recall it, you just don't recall that. You're not saying it didn't exist or it did exist, even when it's presented to you.
That's so
Since
stupid.
then, in that day 2 hearing, you heard the Democrats come out of blazing just using the word lie, and every one of them, it was a nice coordinated attack saying, this is a lie, this is a lie, this is a lie. They're trying to push that perjury case. The lie being the Trump administration officials saying, like you said, there were no details, no war plans, no information. They're hoping that who's going to judge this will agree with them that because they're not actually reading off of a booklet that says this is classified, or they're not actually giving the coordinates, that's good enough to say this isn't detailed enough. Now, before our very plain eyes, we can all see timestamps. We can see weapon systems being named. We can even see time over target being named, which is extremely risky to reveal on any kind of unclass system. That's probably the most risky of all. So weather reports even. We heard there's tons of detail.
Now, again, this gentleman here is not in the Trump team, not in the government, but he does make some good points. I mean, I'll give him that. That's 100%. I mean, I personally would think that that's some classified information. But there's more to it. There's more to it. Now, just because I say that I think it's classified doesn't mean it is classified.
That, of course, all amount up to an attack plan.
Is it a war plan? Is it a war plan?
Of course it is. I mean, look, who cares? What's the difference? To me, I've talked about this too. Thank you for asking, letting me say it. This drives me nuts. I'm an editor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm an editor. My father's a lawyer. I'm an editor.
He's an editor. Take what he says with a grain of salt, just like mine.
So I've spent many years with reporters who will come to me with information. And usually, just kind of by habit, when you type something up, you could say, I've received this document with some convoluted, crazy title on it. And you would say to the reporter, this is too much detail. What is it? So use your plain English. Tell me what this is that you have. And in this case, it's war plans. Now, I guess you could have been a little less hypey and a little more accurate and called it attack plans, mission plans, sortie plans. I mean, who cares? I don't care. All I care about is the ridiculous use of signal and the information that was divulged. So I think people are getting sucked into the White House's pushback. And, the Atlantic kind of asked for it by changing the headline. But it doesn't matter. The reporter gets to describe this in any way they want. The government doesn't get to tell the reporter what to do. To me, it's a plan.
Talk to me about why this matters. People say, okay, you had a reporter on there. They were using a communication system. Nothing got out. The attack happened as it was supposed to. But talk to me about why this is important, why this matters. As an expert in this area, do you believe that U.S. troops' lives could have been put in danger?
Absolutely, they could have. Like I said before, especially when it comes to details like time over target. That's literally when aircraft will be in the region preparing to strike. And as other members of Congress have even said publicly, the air defenses that the Houthis possess, just knowing that they're aircraft over target, they could have been turned on, they could have been activated and found those targets possibly. The Houthis, have already shot down a Reaper drone before. So there's precedent for worry. These aren't ground fighters with rickety AK-47s and ditches in the middle of Afghanistan. They have sophisticated air defenses at their avail. Part of it too is, I mean, what do you call it in crime? Where just the planning of the crime is the crime also, not just whether it was carried out or not. And intention matters too. So there's a lot we can get into with, the Espionage Act and other things like that for intention. But just using the platform is already problem number one. Doesn't matter that the mission was successfully carried out. Thank God it was. Using that platform causes all sorts of problems. It hides from the Records Act communications that are supposed to be kept for posterity for legal reasons by law. It hides from two different, the Presidential Records Act and the Federal Records Act. And it's ridiculously sloppy and stupid to try to think that you can coordinate this stuff on Signal. It just blows everyone's mind.
Let me just push back. I just have a question about that. If you are going to have a top,
this breaking news goes along with this right here, guys. All right, Signal, the Signal scandal that we're talking about right now. Catherine Maher, the leftist NPR, which is in the news, CEO. NPR CEO, didn't Donald Trump just mention something about NPR? Is currently the chair of the board of Signal. See, when you guys hear something like this, and the first thing you want to do is like, oh my God, it's classified. No. You have to wait 3 to 5 days, and you realize what's really going on is, again, I'm going to tell you again. Okay, now listen. If you guys are still here, you're going to get some breaking news here. It's all a setup. They're setting up the deep state left and right. And we're dismantling the deep state left and right. And to me, and some of you guys out there, it's a good feeling. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. We're dismantling the deep state, and they fall right for it. You guys are suckers, deep state. Suckers. She is the CEO. Catherine Maher, the leftist NPR CEO, is currently the chair of the board of Signal. That's the app that they're using. You guys starting to understand this now? Donald Trump is bringing this all to light, so we all know. This is light to me, because I didn't even know this. Imagine that. Imagine that. That is amazing. That is amazing. We got one right here. That's it on that. I'm gonna go back to it.
Secret conversation about upcoming military plans.
That, boys.
Do you have to have it in a form?
It is amazing. They used to have collagen. They used to have
exactly
probiotic
right,
green juice that replaced it all.
Format where it will be recorded, or is the whole purpose of it should never be recorded?
Good question. I don't know the should or the shouldn't for that, but they are. Just because they're top secret doesn't mean that there's nothing turned off. And that means it just means you're in a compartmentalized facility. That's what SCIFs are, or you're using top secret phones, whatever it might be. And there's lots of ways that this happens, right? I've described this in the Pentagon. Even within the Pentagon, which is itself equipped with a whole lot of signal jamming capabilities. Once you walk in that building. Within that, there are layers of secrecy. There are rooms that are more secret than others, all the way to the tank, which is itself a SCIF, the most secure communication spot where the Joint Chiefs and military leaders can communicate, around the world. Even in aircraft, I've been in plenty. This is not secret when you are a reporter and you travel with like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the Secretary of Defense, a combatant commander. If you're on a military cargo plane, within that cargo plane, there will be an old-fashioned Airstream trailer, which is itself becomes a communication pod. These are senior authorities who have the capabilities wherever they go, especially someone like the Secretary of Defense, who is involved in all the way up to the coordination of nuclear strikes, right? The plane that he flies in is hardened famously to fly around the world and be protected from electronic signal jamming and spying for that reason alone.
Right.
There's a lot there.
So it actually brings me back to, and I'm going to get to the Espionage Act in a second, but it brings me back to Signal. What are the reservations of Signal? I mean, I mentioned it before when I was doing the intro, how it has been used before, maybe to schedule some sort of meetings. It has been used by government officials, but is it more susceptible to hacking? I mean, clearly.
If you guys made it this far, the videos are going to get even better. I'm getting better at this. do any editing, unfortunately. I just want to put it raw and cut for you guys. If you guys are made it this far, please like, subscribe, and share. Man, let's get these comments and discussions out to everybody in the world. I want to push it out, and the world will come together eventually.
It's a platform that allowed a civilian, a reporter, to come on, and seemingly nobody knew about it until after the fact. But talk to me about the dangers of using Signal. Has it been?
My thing is, why didn't that reporter just come out and say, "Hey, I'm not supposed to be on here," if he thought it was classified or anything, right? Remember back in the old days, you're on a party line. That just brings my age out. The party line, and you hear people talking. And some of us would just sit there and listen, you know. If I wasn't supposed to be on there, I would say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be on here. But he didn't. That just exposed him.
Been hacked before? Is there a danger of being hacked? Because again, the idea is the information could have gotten into the wrong hands. Away.
I think we're all learning a lot about Signal real fast, more than we realize. I mean, I've used Signal as a reporter for many years. I also used to use Wicker.
That's what I'm saying. We didn't know about it. Now we do.
A real popular one for a while. It's kind of fallen out of favor. And the idea was, this is how, a lot of reporters have it on their profile. If you want to communicate to me secret information or you're concerned about it, you can contact me this way. It's not my email. It's not my phone. This is how we can communicate securely. It's like using Proton as a secure version of Dropbox.
That's what I'm saying.
For documents as well.
I'm not going to be able to use this no more.
That's different than U.S. government officials. And again, there are laws on the books dictating how you are supposed to communicate. A lot of us did not know, I think, was what's been revealed in that first hearing with Tulsi Gabbard and Ratcliffe saying, hey, I got to the CIA and they put Signal on my computer. So if CIA thinks it's okay, it's fine. Now, there are immediately a ton of questions intelligence reporters are putting out there saying, well, which computer was it? Was it your normal one? Was it your one you travel with? Is it your high side, real secure one? Because that's a whole different computer. Who knows? But what it definitely revealed was that this group of national security leaders was using Signal. They were using it willfully and easily, and it seemed like they've been using it for a long time. Nobody was new to this system. And now we're hearing reports that Biden administration officials also were using Signal. We don't know to what extent. We don't know whether they talked about things like war plans and attacks, or if they were just using it to talk about, where to go next, what they wanted to eat for lunch. Lots of people use Signal as their primary texting platform. They just don't want to be on the main text. They don't trust the system. Who knows?
Yeah.
So we're learning a lot about it. I do know in the last couple of months, the National Security Council put out a specific warning that Signal was hackable. The Defense Department put out warnings to the duty personnel and troops saying that these encrypted messaging apps are hackable. Do not put them on your phones, your government phones especially. You're not allowed to do that. So warnings have been put out within the last few weeks about this app being, not being secure for any reason, much less, again,
let's get rid of it.
A strike.
And this now brings me to something that you mentioned before. You said willfully, intentionally. So now it goes back to the Espionage Act and a lot of conversation about the Espionage Act. And as part of the statute, other than intentional wrongs, there is the following section. Whoever being entrusted, I'm reading in part, whoever being entrusted with or having lawful possession or control of any document or plan or information relating to the national defense through gross negligence permits the same to be removed from its proper place of custody or delivered to anyone in violation of his trust. Do you think that this current situation falls into this? Because that becomes a prime conversation.
Do you need a loan for your business? Well, if you've been around for over a year, I'm about
I don't
to
know.
show you how to get up to...
With the major caveat, again, if I'm not a lawyer or a judge.
I understand.
Boy,
it's just his opinion, just like it is mine.
It sure sounds like it. I've also been catching up like everyone on the Espionage Act. That's the best part of being a Pentagon reporter is, tomorrow we'll be reporting about China. And the next day.
And that's another thing. Read up on the Espionage Act. Espionage Act. Wait a minute. I didn't know nothing about the Espionage Act. This gentleman didn't know nothing about the Espionage Act. This guy didn't either. And guess what? We're doing again. We're bringing dark to light. You guys starting to see it now? I mean, if you guys are starting to see it, give me a like, subscribe, chat down below, and let me know if you guys are starting to see it. It's easy to see once you start Just open up your eyes.
They will be reporting about Ukraine. And today it's the Espionage Act.
That's right.
And, there are a lot of experts that are telling the world right now, the use of the espionage usually requires intent.
Yes.
Because it's so broad. And Josh Gerstein at the Politico is a great legal reporter to follow about this, is saying it's so broad that it actually potentially creeps into free speech. Now, in this case, I don't think anybody would argue based on those texts that anybody was intentionally trying to reveal this information.
Correct.
But that's fine. There's no intent. Is it sloppy? Of course it's sloppy. Is it doing things like not protecting the last part of the phrase you wrote? 100%. And now this is where you go back to the parsing of were Tulsi and Ratcliffe lying before by saying they're not plans or they're not war plans. So they're trying to say these aren't plans. This isn't classified information. But according to the phrase,
if it was a setup, they're telling the truth. Now, if it's the truth, and that was what happened, then they might be lying. Time will tell.
Phrase you're reading, it doesn't say that. It just says information about national security. So that's where, you're going to have to get really in the weeds to say what kind of information was this and how was it, if it wasn't protected, then who did it, what should happen. Now, the main text in the chain that we've seen copied from, Jeff Goldberg released is the one from Pete Hegseth that includes all the timestamps. It looks like a cut and paste. And if it is, plenty of folks with Pentagon experience, and former officials and workers have been putting out all over the social medias saying that looks like it's copied directly from a top secret or some kind of SSCI document, the way that it's formatted, the way it looks, right? It looks like an itinerary. He wasn't typing it up. Does it even matter if he was looking at it and typing it or if he was copying and pasting it? He's sharing it, he's spreading it, and he's doing it in a way that's that's not classified.
Unless it's a setup. My money's on it's a setup. It's showing how corrupt and evil these people are.
Anyway, two things to that. Number one, I think it's just the use of the signal system where it created a situation where you could have a civilian have access to it is more problematic than somebody inadvertently being added to the group. Let me just ask you real quick, as a journalist, it's interesting. Jeffrey Goldberg had first said, I'm going to try to do the responsible thing. I'm not going to publish this. And yet was his hand forced where he felt like he had no choice because he was being accused of making something up? Because between Monday and then Wednesday, the national security concerns he would have had didn't really change. Do you think by releasing this information, in the end, that is problematic for our country, problematic to our military? I mean, do you think it was the release of information that shouldn't have been released in the end?
Yeah.
I don't. I understand. I question why he held it all back to begin with. Eventually, other than the one thing that they've kept secret is the name of the chief of staff of CI Director Ratcliffe, because you don't reveal. That's just typical practice, is not to blow someone's cover and reveal someone like that, put them at risk. But even reading the time-stamped text from Hegseth, nothing there's surprising. It was F-18s, and the only thing missing was the name of the carrier. I think it was where these things came from. And if it's after the fact and the mission is done and the mission is over, I mean,
okay,
I don't know. Yes, it's.
I gotta ask this question. In movies, most of your actors, they're all nice looking. They're all good looking actors. Are we watching a movie?
It's worth hiding that because there are going to be more strikes and that's the way they're going to come. So you don't want to reveal that as well. It gets pretty technical. What I have set up to this is I appreciate a lot of the world saying credit to Jeffrey Goldberg for withholding this information and not just dropping it all out and endangering people. My response is yes, I'm glad Jeff did that, but that's kind of what defense reporters and national security intelligence reporters do every day. Every day, reporters like us, like me when I was doing it more, would be involved in secret or classified or sensitive information of all kinds. When you're a reporter and you're asked to travel with the Secretary of Defense on a trip, the entire itinerary is sensitive. You don't reveal it ahead of time. You don't say where you're going. You certainly don't put it on a text to your wife back home. especially during the war years when we were all going in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq and going into forward deployed bases. There's plenty of information shared with journalists, and it's a kind of an unwritten pact that you're going to keep the secrets because we're all doing our jobs.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, just because you hear something, it doesn't mean you go right to the newspaper. I mean, I think that's a crime in itself. Even if it's, he thought it was top secret stuff, he shouldn't have went to the newspaper. But we're going to leave it right there, guys. Hey, if you guys want an unedited version of the Sidebar, Law and Crime, go watch his channel. It's an amazing channel. Please like and subscribe my channel and share this out to somebody. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one, guys. And the next one's even going to be even more explosive, more detail.